And start here. So, hi everybody. Welcome to this Fedora Council meeting. This is exciting because it's the first time we're using open source Jitsi streaming platform for the council meeting. We did it for a release engineering retrospective on Monday, and that worked really well. So we thought, okay, let's do this for the council. We tried it a long time ago, and it didn't fit all of the boxes, including being able to save easily to an archive. Now it's got a thing to hook up to YouTube, which makes it really easy. So we're doing that, and it seems to be working with like 10 people connected when before it all fell apart with 3. So that is awesome. Today's topic is the Fedora Atomic CI initiative, and Stef Walter has been the lead for that. He is on the call, and I guess we have a handoff to Dominik. Dominik, I don't know how to say your last name. I'm guessing Perpeet, but I wouldn't know how to emphasize it, or that maybe I'll let you say your own name.
That works well. That's the English version.
Okay. How do you say it?
Perpeet.
All right, yeah, to my ear, that sounds exactly the same because I'm terrible with languages. So that's awesome. I'm going to shut up, I guess, and I will turn this over to Stef and Dominik, and then we'll maybe do some questions afterwards. Go ahead, guys.
So, in recent times, one of the key interesting things that's happened, you all know about it, is starting to run CI during development with feedback back to packagers and developers in Fedora. And there's several efforts around this, but key to it is getting the tests in dist-git and providing feedback back to packagers in dist-git. And in many ways, we started off with Fedora Atomic Host, and that's actually what it's been limited to up until this time. But Dominik has been scheming of where to take this next and how to help it affect others, not only Fedora, but other the RHEL operating system and the development that's based on Fedora, and kind of further entrenching Fedora as the upstream of RHEL, not only for the source code, but also for the testing. And one interesting way to think about this, I've mentioned this before, but just to summarize it and refresh it so when you talk to other people, it's clear in your minds, is Fedora was always a distribution, is still a distribution that takes source code from all over the internet, brings it into a consistent, curated way, provides updates for it, security for it, and essentially taking source code organizing the source code from a massive community of various tarballs, releases, and some even in-house projects. We're doing essentially the same for the tests here, defining how that stuff works. This is like the next stage of taking Fedora, not only bringing the source code all together, but bringing the tests all together, no matter where they come from. Some are developed in-house, some come from upstream test suites, some come from elsewhere, and a consistent layer so that we can reason about them consistently across everything. And so, Dominik has taken over the day-to-day working with various parts of this project, working with Pingu, working with others in Fedora, as well as working with a team of folks shepherding tests into dist-git. So I'd like to hand this over to Dominik to give us more of the update about the details of what has happened, where we stand, what the next steps are, and the blockers, what things are holding us back. And he's much more able to articulate that directly than me secondhand.
Okay, thanks, Stef. Yeah, let's see about how well I can articulate this clearly, but I'll try my best. So we have, one of the problems that we have, I'm sure I don't have to expound too much on this, but the CI means very different things to different people, right? So that's pretty much where this starts. So what Stef outlined and what we've outlined on the wiki pages and trying to communicate and that's part of the agreement here. What we do want to do in Fedora, that's one general interpretation of having everything tested continuously and continuously integrated. So doing this on Atomic and setting that as a goal was a very good start. but obviously we don't want to end there. So we have.
If I still interject quickly here of the URL, if you go to fedoraproject.org/wiki/ci, there's some of the background documentation to this if people are just joining in and not quite sure about what the background is.
Okay, thanks a lot for linking that. So there you'll also find links to the standard test format and such things to outline kind of the best practice that we see. And that's exactly what we want to provide, right? We can't tell everyone what to do. Fedora is the place where all the things, where a lot of things come together, where we see a lot of change happening, and we have a bunch of experts on packages and different things. And so just to give it a bit of background on that, what my team tries to do is help kind of establish the best practice and help everyone get started with the testing and kind of keep an eye on things, right? Because when something breaks in a package, we file a ticket there. That's easy. But if something happens to the overall testing architecture, where do you go, right? So you can turn to the Atomic CI figure, for example. That's also linked on that wiki page. And then we can help with that. So right now we have the Atomic host testing, and on the roadmap, and that's something we want to do soon, is have the package level testing, right? Pierre will probably jump in now and say not just packages, but updates, because you can't have one without the other. And we started getting tests in. Should I add a link to this sidebar real quick here? Some statistics to show we're tracking. I hope these show up in the recording.
I do not think they show up in the recording, but I will drop them into the recording description afterwards, so we have all the things.
Thank you. So, for example, we have a wiki page that's being updated regularly, I think twice a day, that just looks at the Atomic packages right now and sees which packages have tests in them. And we see that right now 38 packages have that, and it's starting to pick up nicely. And we've gotten very good feedback.
So that was 38 packages?
Yes, 38. That's about 11% of the packages in the Atomic hosts, to my knowledge. There's the Upstream First initiative that takes Red Hat tests and posts them in an interim place, and that has 108 packages. That's 31%. And the 38, the 11% is what's actually in dist-git, in the Fedora dist-git. So we want to extend this from Atomic to the regular packages as well. And in doing this, we've noticed a few things that we need to correct or change. One of them is the idea of how tests should go into dist-git, namely similar to the way we don't want all the packages source code in there. We want to keep that somewhere else. So one proposal there is to add a test namespace. Another change is that whereas the original idea was to test on every commit in dist-git, I think the better way for the future is to test builds that are done and to test pull requests before things go in. That's to fit different workflows. So one of the things we've done is gather feedback from packagers and see what workflows they have and try to work out stories that work for them.
So the idea is
ask me if you want any like more detailed info on these things that I'm throwing out here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious. So if I have a package in Atomic and I build it right now, let's say it's one of the ones that has tests.
Right.
When does that package get tested in my workflow? Let's say a traditional workflow of getting a package into Atomic, I update it in dist-git, then I run the fed package build, and then I go to Bodhi and I push it through Bodhi, and then it lands in an OS tree, and then eventually an Atomic tree comes out the end. That's the condensed version. Right? When do the tests happen and all that, and when do I get feedback? Both right now and ideally.
So right now, once you've pushed an update into dist-git, the CI pipeline will take this change, build the packages, build an OS tree, and run the tests. And
so that happens every time I push to dist-git right now?
Exactly.
And does that happen just for the packages with tests, or does it do that all the time, every time a package is pushed?
It does that for all the packages with tests, but that's a whitelist filter, because otherwise it wouldn't do anything.
Okay. Well, what if like dependencies for my package or something that depends on my package changes?
No tests there currently. That's
okay.
So ideally, that leads nicely into the ideally category. To have true CI, we want to have the test run before something is merged, right, on a pull request. So I think that's very valuable feedback. And also, once something has been merged, you don't need to run the tests again necessarily, but you want to test after every build has been done. This is especially important. That's feedback we've gotten for packages like the kernel, which push updates that they don't want to have tested fully because they know they're not proper builds, and they want to have a signed build, for example, like the secured builds, where only builds from specific people are actually candidates to be released. So once we have the pull request testing and the build-based testing, which is essentially very similar, except for one we don't need to add a new build, then we fit both of those workflows. And like you said, the dependencies, that's a different issue. We haven't fully solved that yet. There's a question of how much there can be automated. The nice thing about the tests in dist-git is that mostly, especially if they're in a different place, and this is the namespace we're working towards, you can reference other tests, right? Including a test does not mean you have to copy the source code, but if you say your package depends on another package, for example, on SLinux, right? If that changes, you want to run the test in your package again, you can either you can add your tests to their package, just reference them, add a pull request there and say, when you make changes, here's some Ansible code that pulls the test code from my test repo and runs it against your package. And they will, every time they open a pull request, they will have your test run on their code. And if they have an issue with that, if something breaks, then you can collaborate on the solution, right? Maybe they can fix your tests, or maybe they have to fix their package. But I think that's the way it'll work. I'm sure we can reduce the boilerplate there some. We look at dependencies and package dependencies, but I think we don't need to over-engineer this, because in a lot of cases, package maintainers will know their favorite candidates for breaking their package, and I think that's the most important part here, is to make sure that where we have different experts and where we have shared knowledge, we want to make sure that we can combine that knowledge. And that's why we want to have the tests in dist-git to bring the tests together with the source code, right? That's the intent. So I think with that link, we can leverage the knowledge we have. Right. So and with the package level testing, especially, I think that'll be the next level. And to make all this really work, and this is something that has not been enabled, is gating. I think for testing to be effective, we really need to enable gating, because otherwise, who cares about tests that don't have an effect, right? So there were a few performance blockers a while ago, and right now, I think the biggest concerns that we had are that a lot of tests are failing, and we need to go into more detail about why they're failing, and even more importantly, for at least that we thought it was important, right now, if the test fails, you can't re-trigger it without pushing to dist-git again, which is very inconvenient. So that is an annoyance that we didn't want to put on the packager. Pierre, I think I summed that up correctly, right? Or do you have something to add there?
No, it sounds good to me.
Okay. And I think for the retriggering, we're still waiting for some changes, right? Before that works.
Yes, we need some change done in the OpenID Connect extension for Flask, and then we will deploy a small service that other services in the Fedora infrastructure could talk to retrigger any test anywhere. The idea being to consolidate the Atomic CI pipeline, but also the package testing pipeline, and also things like auto QA, or I'm missing one. Well, other CI or test system to consolidate all of them around one service that would support retriggering. I'm not sure if I explained that clearly, though.
Yeah, I think that describes it well. I guess the question I have at this point is it worth waiting for all that, or what do you all think? Should we go for gating sooner and say retriggering is a minor annoyance? It's better to have some kind of effect here right now.
What is the retriggering from a dumb packager point of view? What is the issue? I didn't quite get it.
Okay, say you have tests in your package. You push a change. The pipeline runs the tests, and there is a flaky test, and the result is red. It has failed. And you know that if you could just re-trigger it again, if you just try it again, then it would probably succeed. Nothing is really broken. Just something you can't really control, or I don't know.
Right. Without having to like make a new build, it's artificially rebuild with a bumped release, which we might have to do 100 times if it's failing for some stupid reason. Which means that if you're gating on that, we don't have a good way to say, wait, stop, release the gate. Is that the problem, basically?
I think we can still, Pierre, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can still bypass the gating with GreenWave, right? Or WaverDB.
That would be with WaverDB, yes.
Right.
And there is work in progress in Body currently happening, that we would be able to have ways of saying that some results can be waived by anybody, and some results could be waived by only, for example, release engineering. So WebDB is the big hammer to be able to say, well, discard these test results and proceed as normal. But the retriggering is also just nice, because you want to know if the tests are working or not, and the reason why they didn't work last time was maybe because you got a flaky mirror instead of getting an updated one. So that test failed, but you don't know at the end if the test failed because of the test themselves, or because of an infrastructure issue or something else. So you would want to rerun the test, and then if you get stuck and always get a crappy mirrors and can never get the test to run properly, then maybe you waive them.
I know that Stef had a very inspiring talk about using bots to detect when these flakes are things that could probably go away on a retry and just automatically retrying. Is there any progress on making us have magical bots to do that?
There is work that's done there. It also then depends on retriggering. So a bot then goes and diddles that same service that a human might do. So one of the interesting things about bots, that if you do them right, is they should do the same things that a human can do. And then that allows the two to kind of merge their workflows. Of course, they can do the repetitive things, but I would love to, I'm currently doing the research on this. It's quite interesting, and I have some promising results that I'd like to share further, but it does not preclude the work that Dominik's talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I would be inclined to push for some user visible improvements that don't get in the way of things. So I guess opt in to gating, and that with an easy way to opt back out again would be pretty positive, even without the retriggering.
I agree with that, and to be honest, the retriggering is interesting, and it grows into almost every CI system that you see. However, one of the key things, the key tenets that we should never forget, is that the CI here is completely modifiable by the packagers, the maintainers who are involved. Therefore, if a certain test is flaky, obviously retriggering is a nice way to avoid annoyance there, but the real fix is to then either disable or change that test. It's fully in control of the developer community and the packagers involved. So I don't. I believe that Dominik, is there a way to present this to a broader consensus decision, or perhaps a place to get feedback on what are the requirements for turning on gating, or what's necessary to do beforehand, or do you feel you have it, you're able to just make a decision like this and make it happen, or what's the ask there?
The ask is, so I think we could turn this on with a bit of forewarning. I don't think we don't need a big consensus for this. All the pull requests that we opened, at least I hope the ones I saw, that on what I tried to make sure that we always clearly spelled out that this will be used for gating purposes eventually, right? So I think by merging, the permission was granted, and like you said, during all this workflow, it's very important that the ultimate decision and control is with the packager. If they don't want to test in their dist-git repo, they can just push a commit to remove that test or disable it. That's something they can always do. So the ask here is we have the trade-off between having gating enabled and actually benefiting from the tests, versus risking that the tests are kind of flaky and or encourage behavior that ignores tests, right? If a test is failing often enough, either you invest a lot of time fixing it, or if you can't, because it's something you can't control, then my experience is you start to ignore it. So that's a balance as we're trying to get this mindset changed and having more tests. The question is that going to hurt us or not to enable gating at this point?
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. I think that this is probably something we shouldn't decide just at the council level. It's probably a good discussion on the Fedora Devel list. And so when you're ready to open that up, that's probably where this should go, because then we can kind of get broader feedback from people about how they feel about that particular trade-off.
I mean, that's a good suggestion. I'm happy to outline the pros and cons to the Devel list, maybe with a specific recommended date for enabling gating, because it's just flipping a switch at this point.
Yeah, and when that switch is flipped, that's a switch that lets people opt in, right? Or will it be flipped?
Pingu, are we still sticking with that plan that the presence of tests, of any test in the dist-git repo, is the opt-in for gating, is the opt-in to be part of this? And so we have a staggered, staged approach, and people can opt in and out over time. And we really do need to prove the benefit to people as we go. And part of that benefit comes from the gating. Otherwise, the tests rot. And we see most of them failing. So I think all those aspects are covered.
Can I have a test which I know will fail?
Yep. Just like every one of the key tenets is that everything the bots can do, you can do. So you can run that test yourself, or you can ask your co-developers to run it on their own machines. It will run just as well as in a testing system.
All right. So, but if I can I have a test for, I know this thing should work, but I know that it doesn't in my package, but I want my package to keep going. Can I basically have specific non-gating tests or all test gating?
You can put tests in a different directory. I mean, you can have your wrapper not include certain tests for execution. They just sit there. You can rename them so that they have a different name while you're working on them. I mean, the options, there's as many options as you have in a file system. It's certainly a flexible setup.
That makes sense. But basically, if I have a test that's there in the tests directory, it will be at some point be a gating test.
If it's
that's the intent.
Well, technically, if you go to technical level, if it's included, if it's specified as being run with a specific tag in an Ansible playbook in your dist repo, then it will be run. But like any other dist thing, you can have conditions there and different tags, and you have the ultimate control, right? Because the gating pipeline runs these with specific, well-defined parameters that are outlined in on the wiki page, and if you modify those slightly to have maybe a second set of tests, then you can have them the non-gating, and if I think that's a good pattern, and if you're a packager having trouble making this work, this would be a perfect issue to raise with our team, and we would help you make that work.
Okay, cool.
So if you're a packager and you're having trouble with the tests as they're being run or as you want to use them, then the Fedora-CI RC channel or our Atomic CI board with the issues is a perfect place to raise those issues, and we can answer them. And either we can recommend the best practice, or we can improve our documentation, or we fix the pipeline to run the way that's supposed to be. We run and support that workflow.
Yeah, I have one other question here that occurs to me as looking into the test stats here. I see that there are 40-something tests in the waiting for a PR state. Is that becoming a bottleneck, or is that fine? I don't see, I don't know the flow rate, basically.
The pending pull requests?
Yeah.
That is a mixture of issues we have to address that are known, such as the kernel wants to test specific builds, not on diskette changes. Some tests that don't, or some packagers who don't want the test code in their diskette repo but want a shared namespace, that is being addressed. And a handful that say development has nothing to do with tests. We don't want tests at all. So that's a mindset change we have to work on and improve the communication. So there is a definite problem in the sense that it's not picking up as quickly as we would like. But I don't want to talk anyone into adding tests. I want to resolve these issues first, and then I think, like Stef said, with the gating, we start seeing the benefits, and I think convincing is a better option. And ultimately, I don't think anyone can be forced to add. The packager should still have the final say in what they want in the repo.
At least for now. I think that what we should get to the point where we are proving this to work to the satisfaction of most people in Fedora, and then if we do have key packages where they still don't want tests, that might be a discussion we should have, because I think that we really do need tests for all of our core packages. I don't think that eventually I think that should be non-optional, but I would like to do that slowly in a safe and careful way.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I should rephrase what I said and say I can accept if there are good reasons about not having tests, especially technical ones or workflow issues. But in the long term, I would like to address those on a case-by-case basis and see if we can resolve them. Because in the end, looking at Fedora as a whole, I think we would all benefit from having good CI in place. And especially when you look at how packages are connected and cross-package impact, you're at a point where changing or adding tests to one package is not just about maintaining that package, but maintaining the state of Fedora overall.
I think it's also worth noting that, with increased CI means we can increase other kinds of automation. So thereby ultimately lowering the effort involved in packaging and maintaining things in general. So I think that's that is a very important upside to getting this in place, right?
Yes, very much so. But also, I mean, it's not magical, right? You still, if a test fails, someone still has to do the work of fixing the issue. But
I thought they were robots, so they're magic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the interesting thing, and it really underscores what Langdon is saying, is that in order for bots to produce useful work, there needs to be some definition that they follow, whether that is good or bad work. A good example is currently the factory guys are doing great work. Ralph Bean and others are doing great work on rebuilding containers automatically when a security vulnerability happens in the lower layer. Now, due to the way we compose an operating system, it's very unpredictable what is going to end up in that container based on the dist-git repos, all the NVRs of everything that's sitting there, what happened to be tagged in a certain way. It's completely non-idempotent, completely not reproducible. Therefore, the only way to verify that that container continues to work after a security update really is testing it to check that it works. You can have bots doing all the work to rebuild that container, to trigger it, to orchestrate it, to FreshMaker working through it. Unless you have the tests to make sure that the packages that are in that container and, of course, the module that the container is built on work as expected, the bots are basically hoping for the best. They're not really a reliable source of aid to the maintainers. They're basically a way to poke the maintainers again and say, hey, check it out, we built this, I hope it works. So back to the point, what Langdon's saying, the automation all depends on getting the tests and the CI and the validation work.
Yeah, we kind of have that poke the maintainer, hey, we made this, maybe it works thing with automatic package updates right now in Fedora, which is cool. But it would be nice to be, hey, I made this and I think it works, would be a huge step forward.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so I will take as an action item to reach out to DevelList and propose a date to enable gating and describe clearly what the impact will be for the packagers.
And only for those packagers who have tests. Let's make this very clear that people who are willing to join in this effort early, they can join in it early. They can also then have more say in how it works as they join early. And then people who don't want to join right now, the community, of course, there's varied people, 450 different packagers. Those people can choose to join later once everything's been decided and worked out.
The other related topic I would just say is, I don't know if you guys have already, but I would definitely be trying to coordinate with the FPC, the Fedora Packaging Committee, and this is something that I think is just part of the guidelines, right? Kind of going forward. So integrating what exactly should be done and why and how and that kind of stuff. Working with the FPC to make sure that that content is there would be useful, I think. And maybe you already are, but
I'm not sure what you would want the FPC to, because this has nothing to do with packaging itself. So I'm not sure what you would want to see.
But it does, right? In the sense that, the gateway for bringing a package into Fedora is the review of the package. And I would say that one of the gates to bringing a package into Fedora should be at least considering tests, right?
I don't think we're at the point where we actually want to gate adding package in Fedora based on the presence of tests for that package.
Okay. It's something to at least think about. I guess that's where I think that documentation belongs, I guess, but maybe not.
If we end up having tests being mandatory on Fedora, then definitely we should work on that with the FPC and make the guidelines clear on this. But
well, the FPC guidelines also are not all mandatory, to be clear, right?
Yeah, it seems like it'd at least be useful to add a link to the testing documentation in the documentation for adding and updating a package in Fedora. That sounds good, at least.
Okay,
I definitely also don't want to raise the wall to becoming a packager in Fedora any higher. It's already a pretty high wall.
Yeah, so I think that's partially a separate issue, but I guess if the objective, I mean, in my mind, right, part of the objective with doing CI is that you're engaging the actual engineers in doing testing rather than throwing it over a wall to a QB organization. And unless it's part of the packaging guidelines, which is kind of our, semi-synonymous thing to engineering, it's still buried over in, something that QA worries about.
Yeah, that's valid. I have a completely different question. I know the plan was, and this is all kind of based around Fedora Atomic testing. When we enable gating, will I be able to enable gating for my package, which is of no use whatsoever to Atomic?
Yeah, the question is to gate where, right? With the pipeline we currently have, it would not be a direct benefit, but with the package level testing, I could imagine that we could have a gated rawhide, for example.
So right now the gating is at, does it land in the OS tree? Is that where the gate is?
Yeah, Pierre, correct me if that's wrong. That's where it would work right now, to my understanding.
Well, part of the gating was as far as the Bodhi update. That was many of the basic technology for that was ready at Flock, of course. Then once you try and enable it, there was delays both pragmatic as far as schedule and additional wrinkles that were found and had to be developed around. So it does affect the rest of Fedora.
So if I have, here's my go-to. I've got a command line calculator called calc that I maintain because reasons. I like it. It's not an Atomic. Maybe you would use it in a container, but probably not. I would like it if it, suddenly starts returning 2 + 2 = 6 to fail. Can I benefit from this?
Definitely. So at the very least, since the package level testing, the pipeline is something we definitely want to set up very soon. At the very least, you will have this feedback in Pagure with the test results that says the tests on your build have failed. And if we do the proper build level testing or update level testing, so this is roadmap again, not current state, then you should have the feedback there as well.
So where will that feedback? It'll be on the source.fedoraproject.org. Will that be like an issue filed, or how would that work?
Pierre, where do we want to hook this up? I think for the updates that could go into Bodhi. Is that correct?
So the idea is that there are 2 getting points. One in Pagure for pull requests that are submitted. That's one place where we would run the test and report feedbacks. And the second place is Bodhi and updates. So when the update is created, when the build is kicked or the update is creating, we run the test and report that to Bodhi.
Okay, so the 2 places are basically, if somebody else is making a PR to my package, I'll know if it's good or bad. But if I'm updating my own package and I'm not like jumping myself through a PR hoops because I'm just the one person and we're not doing a paired update thing, we're not forcing review for all package changes. Probably not for a long time, if ever. Basically, my point is when I make the update of it, if the tests fail at that point, then I'll get feedback then that I'm putting out a bad update.
Yes. I also want to point out that Tiger supports having project and forcing PR contributions on a per project basis. So if you don't want to put yourself through the PR oops for your project, there are projects that may actually do that.
There are projects that would go through the PR. You're saying not a project that will force me to do it because I don't want to join that project.
No, but there are projects where you would not be able to push directly to the project. You would have to go through PRs.
Yeah, I know that's common in a lot of big projects. I don't think that is going to be us without a pretty big cultural change.
Pagure supports it on a per project basis. So we can't enforce it we could also enforce it for everything, but some project may, step in on that.
Okay. The other thing is, right now, if I put an update into Rawhide, it doesn't go through Bodhi. Are we looking to change that?
Long term, and that's something which I think would also benefit the no alpha in Fedora. I would love to have you click a build in Koji that automatically creates the update in Body for Rawhide, and if the test pass, your build is automatically pushed, and we are back to the current state of Rawhide. And if the tests do not pass, they are gated in Body. But I don't think that is something which we want to work on right now. I think we better implement gating in Body, implement some gating in Fedora in general, and then try to target getting Rawhide.
That makes sense to me, yeah. Personally, if just from a person who likes data point of view, the lack of Bodhi information about all things that have been built in Rawhide is just painful to me because there's a treasure trove of information on updates after the release, and then nothing on just the random builds. So I would like that. All right, so we're about 15 minutes left to go here. Dominik, Stef, do you have more? Are there questions from other people who have not been talking as much as I have, or Langdon? Did I lose internet connectivity entirely, and is everybody dead?
I heard you, and I don't have anything else to add, so.
Bueller.
Yeah, that's it for me too.
All right. Josh, Bex, anything?
I have no questions. I typed that in the chat.
Yeah, I'm good. This has been pretty informative, so thank you for presenting it for us.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you very much, Stef and Dominik. And we will go through the process of changing the objective lead, probably just on the mailing list. I don't think we even need a ticket or anything for that because I don't think there's any, unless somebody has a strong objection, they should speak up really soon because I think that's pretty much just procedural.
Maybe I have one thing, if there's still some time.
There it is. Go.
So I know that there is also the Taskatron effort, right? And I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's feet here when I'm saying we want to do package level testing. So I feel like that's okay, but if anyone does feel that Taskatron should be doing this, then I'm willing to have a frank discussion on that. To be clear, I don't want this to be another thing of, well, we're already doing this. Why are you also working on that, right? This is also part of the story that Stef hinted at with the Red Hat products. It's no secret that I'm looking at the Fedora place and also at Red Hat distributions at the same time, and I'm working towards towards having a lot of consistency there, and I see the Fedora space as essential and a role model that we want to, that is very important, that we're focusing on right now for that reason. And I think the CI pipeline as developed, as it's running in the CentOS CI infrastructure right now, and is spearheaded by Ari, I think is the solution I see right now, is the scalable way of doing this, and I feel like it's proven itself with the atomic host work. But if there are concerns there, then I would rather have that discussion, and so please reach out to me, and I'm happy to have that discussion, either directly or on the mailing list.
Yeah, I think I have more confusion over that than concern, I guess. Maybe it's concern, confusion, I don't know. I think that probably the Fedora QE team that's where the Taskotron came out of that, and Tim Flink's kind of engineering work on that. It would probably be good to have that conversation at some point, just figure out what the plan forward is. I know he's been working on the upstream first tests, and so has been involved in all of this. I'm not sure what the state of anything is. I would like to end up with a non-confusing story for Fedora contributors, so they understand, what parts are doing what. We already have a very multifaceted infrastructure, and we are clearly adding a bunch of new facets to that here. So it would be nice to at least tell a coherent story about where Taskotron and this all fit together.
Okay, yeah. I think the action item that is that I'll try to clearly define when make sure that when we're setting this up and actually starting the package level testing, we should properly announce that and give that discussion room if it arises, and make sure we coordinate on the scope with Tim at least, and see how that goes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as I understand it, there are a lot of places where, Taskotron, although it has a fancy brand name, is really just a bunch of integration for BuildBot into the Fedora infrastructure. And so I think the important thing is that we're integrated into the Fedora infrastructure and are using FedMessage and putting results in a place that's consistent and those kind of things, rather than the branding per se.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good point or a good time to also point out again that the standard test format and the CI pipeline are not hard linked, right? The standard test format is a description that this is more about the roles, right? What's the test runner? What runs the test, and what is the delineation from that to the actual test content? If you have something else that runs those tests, that's fine. That's why we're setting this up in a modular way that, for example, with Pagure, the tests or the results can be fed into that single place, much as you're used to with GitHub and other places, because that's the important end result. And the pipeline is the tool we're using for that because it works, we know it, and it's scalable. So these are not automatically linked, but we believe it's the best practice to use that, and I think it's the tool best suited for this.
Yeah, and I don't have any reason to override the judgment on that. I also very much like the collaboration with CentOS on the CentOS CI there. I would like us to not duplicate efforts between our distributions where we, but there are a lot of great people over there working on CentOS, and the CI thing they've got is cool. So where we can share work and share hardware too, because hardware is expensive. That's awesome.
And not forget the maintenance effort.
Right, yeah, share work is, I should maybe underline that too. That's more expensive than hardware when it comes right down to it. All right, Anybody else have anything further? I think we'll wrap this up. All right. Thank you very much, Stef and Dominik. So I guess I posted the meeting schedule on the Fedora Council mailing list. I forget what's up for next week, and then we've got some holidays going on, and it'll probably be back to normal in like February, but that's the end of the year every year. Again, thank you, everybody, and I'll see you online. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.